We cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that created them. And so too often, we give our children answers to remember rather than problems to solve. Grazing reserve, a president's miscalculations. President Muhammadu Buhari has approved recommendations of the committee to review with dispatch 368 grazing sites across 25 states in the country to determine the levels of encroachment. The President's directive followed his approval of the recommendation of a committee chaired by the Chief of Staff of the President, Ibrahim Gambari, among others. The committee had recommended the collection of field data on 368 grazing reserves across 25 states to assess encroachment and encroachers, stakeholders, engagement, and sensitization. The committee also recommended productions of map and geomapping tagging of sites, analysis of findings and report preparation, as well as the design of appropriate communication channels on grazing reserves and operations. The number of the grazing reserve and states were deduced from consideration of existing security concern and other pre-existing socio-economic conditions. The President directed that the assignment be undertaken with dispatch to bring more understanding on the grazing reserve and implementation. The President's directive on the grazing reserve is taking Nigeria backward. This is perhaps an invitation to anarchy. The 1956 Grazing Reserve Gazette, being referred to, predated the Land Use Act of 1978. Today, the Land Use Act is the extant law on the administration of land across the 36 states of the Federation, including the FCT Abuja. And that act empowers the governors of the state to hold land in trust for the people. The President has no such powers under our laws to direct the states or a committee to go from state to revive grazing reserve in the face of an existing law on land administration in Nigeria that has not made provision for such, and same have not been repealed. The Southern governors recently reached a resolution banning open grazing, and subsequently, the state houses of assembly in the respective states in the southern part of Nigeria have all come up with laws and or bills to legitimize their resolution. President's directive insisting on the grazing reserve in the 36 states is at cross purpose with the respective legislations passed against open grazing by many states already. The Land Use Act of 1978, by law, should have repealed all policies, acts, gazette, and directive on land administration in Nigeria. Therefore, all issues on land must be guarded and directed by the Land Use Act. The Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari has no powers under the Nigerian law to bypass an existing law to come up with a policy on grazing. He must send an executive bill to the National Assembly for consideration to that effect, and save and except the law is passed by the National Assembly, the President's directive on the grazing reserve cannot stand. The Grazing Reserve Gazette policy was promulgated before independence that predates the entire structure we have today. The emergence of the Land Use Act that abolished freehold in Nigeria upturned the 1956 Gazette and all policies, laws, and regulations in land and vest land in its totality to the state governors to hold in trust for the people. So until the Land Use Act is repealed, the President's directive cannot work, especially as many state governors and Nigerians are against open grazing. Besides, if there were encroachment occupants of those lands, they now occupy them legally, having been issued certificate of occupancy by the state governor of the state in question. I would therefore advocate that instead of dissipating energy on grazing reserves, the president should rather direct herders who wield weapons to kill farmers to be fished out and prosecuted. The army should come up with an operation like they did in the Southeast, Operation Python Dance, so as to exterminate killer herdsmen in our country. More so, synergize with governors in developing ranching policy for herders rather than supporting open grazing or grazing reserve that lead to unending farmer-herders clashes. I shall go to Rabbi again.